Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the state of Virginia and talking a little bit about some news that's come out of the Commonwealth, in the past couple of days, and really some news that's been circulating ever since Democrats indeed took a sizable majority in the House of Delegates and won the race for governor by 15 points. And so, just to get right into it, in case you have not heard, there are discussions, very real discussions, about Democrats redrawing the congressional maps in Virginia to gain up to 4 new seats. Now, as of right now, if we look at the most recent election results in Virginia, we can see that Republicans currently hold, we'll count them together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seats. And so in theory, Democrats could draw a very, very aggressive gerrymander that would limit Republicans to just 1 seat, likely a combination of District 9 and District 5. So this is interesting for a number of reasons. First of all, this would be far and away, I think, the most aggressive gerrymander in the country if it were to be drawn. If Democrats were to actually draw a map that would net them 4 seats compared to where we are right now. And I don't say that lightly. There are a lot of very aggressive gerrymanders in the country. Talk about Texas, which was already a gerrymander that is now going to be even more gerrymandered. Talk about California, which is going to be a Democratic gerrymander due to the passage of Prop 50. I think this map in Virginia would be even more aggressive than either of those maps, right? And I say that because, at least in Texas, Democrats, Kamala Harris got around 43% of the vote. Democrats still have a higher share of seats there than Republicans would in Virginia, having 1 of 11, right? Trump got 46% of the vote here in 2024. If Democrats were to draw a 10-1 Harris map or a 10-1 Democratic map, Republicans would have less than 10% of the seats in a state that Trump got 46% of the vote in. That is wildly unproportional at a level that is, way more than Texas and more than California. Now, to be fair, California is less proportional than Texas is, but in California, the political geography of the state is heavily favorable to Democrats, which makes it a bit easier to draw Democratic maps and to actually draw maps that end up being kind of accidentally Democratic leaning. And so this has a couple ramifications. I think the first thing we have to remember is that while we're on the topic of this specific map drawing 4 more Democratic seats, this could easily not succeed, right? And I don't mean not succeed in the legislature. I do actually think Virginia Democrats have a good chance of passing a new map, given that they have a really big majority in the state house and that their state Senate leader, Senator L. Louise Lucas, is very, very adamant about passing new maps. And I imagine Abigail Spanberger would sign new maps into law as governor. But what we have to remember is that even if Democrats were to draw 4 more seats for themselves, they wouldn't be guaranteed to win them, right? And again, this is a zero-sum game. You'd have to draw some pretty competitive districts that maybe lean blue, but with the right candidate could easily go red, right? Virginia is not blue enough. It isn't like Maryland or Delaware or New Jersey even, where you can get a map that is going to easily net Democrats a bunch of seats. There are still a lot of pretty red areas of Virginia that are sizable in population. We have to remember Donald Trump got 46% of the vote here, which is a sizable amount. And so to draw 10 out of 11 districts to be blue, you'd have to draw at least 2 or 3 pretty competitive seats that maybe would narrowly vote for Democrats, but would be no guarantee. So that's the first thing we have to consider. The second thing we have to consider is that Democrats might be doing this, I think, potentially just in preparation for 2026, because 2026, as we know, is anticipated, and there's no guarantee, but it's anticipated to be a good environment for the Democratic Party, based on what we saw in 2025 and the special elections, as well as the fact that Donald Trump is not very popular right now, and that the most important issue, which appears to be the economy, is trending away from his direction. And so a lot of people are, I think, reasonably, and I think there's a lot of validity behind this analysis, but a lot of people are anticipating a good year for Democrats in 2026. Those of you who've been watching the channel since, even just this year know that I'm a little bit more bearish on Democrats than most. But I am open to the prospect of Democrats having a good 2026. I think it's certainly possible and wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Now, what I will say is that really means that Democrats might be playing the short game here. If they're going to draw a couple of marginal seats, they might say, or Democrats might be thinking, okay, these seats are going to go blue in 2026 because it'll be a really good year for Democrats, but they might have, run the risk of going red in 2028 or 2030, depending on the environment. If that's the game plan, it's not the worst kind of strategy, just because by 2028, Democrats will have had more chances to challenge the like the new Republican maps in states like Missouri, Indiana, and Texas through court. They'll also potentially have the chance to redraw New York, which they probably won't be able to do before 2026. And so this could kind of be like a temporary stop the bleeding, at least for 2026, to help Democrats regain the House, which is obviously their number one priority at this point. So that's where I think this 4-seat figure comes from. But that's just one example. And this is not an official, like, approved map, right? This is a proposal. And I think more likely, this is possible, but more likely we're probably going to see a map that gains Democrats 2, maybe 3 seats. I would lean towards 2. And the reason I say that is because Democrats are going to want to be cautious here. They had a really good 2025 in Virginia, but in the period, I would say between 2020 and 2025, we saw Republicans make steady progress. They won the governorship in 2021. In 2022, they flipped a competitive House seat. They didn't beat Spanberger, which was, that wasn't a good performance of them, but they did still flip a House seat down in Virginia Beach with Jen Kagan, who is still in Congress, as you can see. And in 2024, Trump did really well, especially in Northern Virginia. He came within 6 points of winning the state. So Virginia, Democrats have momentum here, but we have to remember that it's a swingy state. It's pretty elastic, and I think more so than other states, like North Carolina, for example, is a bit less elastic. And so we have to remember is that Democrats, and congressional Democrats who already are Democrats who are already in Congress who represent districts in Virginia, like say someone like Eugene Vindman or obviously Suhas Subramaniam, who didn't do that well in 2024. They don't want to take in a bunch of red territory. These are guys who narrowly won in blue or leaning districts. They don't want their districts to get any redder than they already are. And so they're going to pressure Democrats if they even do redraw a map. They're going to pressure Democrats in the Virginia legislature to draw a map that keeps them safe. And to keep these two incumbents safe, you're going to have to concede some red territory, right? You're going to have to maybe draw an extra Republican district to just pack Republican voters into one seat. And so that's why I think more realistically, we're going to get a map that would probably net Democrats 2, maybe 3 seats. I would still bet on 2, like I said. They'll probably come on the coast. Rob Whitman shouldn't be too hard to draw out. Obviously, Jen Kagan is already in a seat that's very competitive as it is, and so Democrats, even like a 4 or 5 point shift there, could probably take her out of the picture, or at least make it harder for her to win. And then the third district would probably come, maybe somewhere in Ben Klein's seat. Obviously, his seat is a bit rather than John McGuire's in the 5th, but there's some areas up here like Charlottesville over here and then Roanoke over here that you could kind of draw in with, maybe a marginal part of Suhas Subramaniam's seat or the district that's currently represented by Eugene Vindman. So you could maybe draw a third district here, but I'd be shocked if we saw Morgan Griffith or John McGuire. I think these districts are probably going to stay together for the most part. And Ben Klein, he still, I think, is at worst 50% chance going to remain in a red district. So the real concerns for Republicans at this point are Jen Kagan and Rob Whitman, who are definitely on the chopping block. So that's what I think is going to happen in Virginia. Democrats, obviously, I don't want to call it a mandate, but I do think they have some kind of energy right now, given that they just had a really, really good performance in the state a month ago. And that might make them confident enough to pass new maps. And the other thing is that Prop 50 passed in California, and it won by 30 points nearly. It won by more than Kamala Harris did. So given all of that, I think Democrats in Virginia might be pretty eager to get a ballot initiative, up for votes in soon to put these new maps in before 2026, or at least before 2028. Timing is also a big part of this, but given what happened in California, I think there's reason for Democrats to be confident that it could pass in a redder state like Virginia, or rather than California, obviously, a state like Virginia. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about these developments, and I will see you all very soon.